Okay. Am I too
I don't want to
okay.
have to cut you off when we talk about the poll results. So I think we're gonna wrap that up in just a minute. I'm not seeing the poll information. I don't know, Lisa, you or Amanda, if you're seeing that.
Yes, I've got it. Okay, we've got 70% farmers on the call, which is great, and 40% other. So curious who other is, not farm service provider and not researcher academic. And let's see. Many of you are on small farms, 75% farming on 0 to 9 acres and 20% on 10 to 24, and a few folks on, or one person on over 25 acres. Mostly produce and specialty crops, 80%, 10% livestock, 5% grain for human consumption, and 14%, just about 3 people producing grain for animals. And let's see. I think that's all the questions. So welcome, everyone.
Welcome. And next slide, please, Amanda. And so here we go, the heart of today's matter. Soil Health to Go, we get to introduce Warren and Lavette Blue, who own and operate the Greener Garden in Baltimore City. Both Warren and Lavette are retired from former professions. Both are certified master gardeners. The Blues started growing produce just for themselves, but in 2014, they became full-time farmers. They sell direct to consumer at Baltimore's Druid Hill Farmers Market via the Farm Alliance of Baltimore. And at Waverly Market, they also wholesale to other farms who are looking to sort of round out their CSA offerings. The farm is certified naturally grown, and the Blues use organic practices. Their focus on soil health includes careful management to prevent issues in their more than four hoop houses. That's a typo. Cover cropping, compost and compost teas, and a low or no-till approach whenever possible. They have helped us create a video that captures quite a few of their practices in action, and it's about 5 minutes long. So this is going to give everybody a real good opportunity to kind of see what they are up to in the soil health arena. And Lavette, I promise I'm going to give you a chance to talk. And
I'm fine. I'm fine.
All right, we can run to the next slide and start the video. Ooh. Oh.
This is our dry compost bed that we just have. We just put all kind of grass, leaves, just dry material that we put here instead of putting in a regular compost bin. And we just let it go down, and then we add more. And then later on in the fall of the year, in the spring of the year, we put it into the ground. It's our compost bucket that we put our kitchen scraps and all into, and we use that. And this is what we do. And when it goes down, we pour the juice off, and this will be dumped into the ground in the spring.
To keep our ground nice and healthy, this right here is potash. It's originated from real wood and a real fireplace. No artificial logs or anything. That's what we use for that. This here is DE that we use, put into the soil to help to get rid of any infestation or to stop the population of any bugs or pests or anything growing in the soil. This here is coffee grinds, which is good to keep slugs out, plus it add a lot of value to your soil.
Nice.
This here is worm castings, come from Delaware. It consists of vegetables and rabbit poop. With. We also sell it from the fellow there in up in Delaware. Half a gallon or gallon, either 5-gallon buckets. Here is the fertilizer that we use. Is the Garden Tone fertilizer that we use, organic. Okay. This right here is sulfur that we use to put in some of the beds sometimes for to keep the salinity down, to make sure that it's not hurting the roots of the crops. Okay, this is the cultivating tool. 4 problems on it. You get between your small lettuce and most beans stuff coming up. You have to cultivate it to keep the ground, keep it open, the air get to the plant. And even when you water, for the water to go down and so the soil will be compact and cause diseases. And I like this tool. It's one of my favorite tools. I got maybe one in every other greenhouse. So I don't have to look for them. That's it. This is all garlic. That's it. Planting. I use this after break the soil up to get the weeds out at the same time. You don't need electric or gas. Well, I guess a mechanic killer. This here does just as good a job. You have to break the soil up so you can get the new plants in or seeds in and pull the weeds up at the same time. You have to rake it out. And when you go to put your seedlings in, the ground is all loose. Ready, but it'll pull all your grass out for you. Okay, this is the garlic house. We have 4 rows of garlic in here. And it's just starting to come up now good, you know? Oh, that little blur in the way, that was my wife saying in the way.
This is us.
All right, well done to both of you. We can move to the next slide. And before I hand things over to Warren and Lavette, I do just want to note that we are running a little video contest. If you submit a video, it doesn't have to be that long. In fact, a minute is really kind of what we're aiming for. And you send that in to us, Amanda at millionacrechallenge.org. All the names are going to go in a pot for a chance to win $50. And what we want is for you to talk about what you're doing currently that has to do with soil health. So it's just a quick 1-minute snapshot of your soil health practices in video form. And there'll be more about that on our social media pages. Okay, enough talking from me. We've got Warren and Lavette ready to rock and roll on talking about the things that are bullet pointed here. They were mentioned in the video. And we're gonna focus on a handful of questions. Next slide, please. And I'll have a chance to see these.
You're gonna answer something.
Eventually, we're going to be showing you some pictures that come from the farm. So this slide will. But Warren, Lavette, let's get started with you telling us just briefly about the farm, kind of the size and the growing areas.
You want to do it? You can do it. We actually have 8 hoop houses. 9 actually, with the seedling house that we grow our own transplants. And then we also order transplants, but we grow most of them ourselves. We're about an acre of land. And we are, like I said before, certified naturally grown. We use organic practices. And we do a lot of growing now in the hoop house because of the climate change. And then we do a lot of composting and stuff, and I'm going to turn it over to my husband for that. Here you go.
Well, I guess the composting we do, we save all of our fruit and vegetable clippings in the bucket that you saw in the video all year long. And in the springtime, we'll drain that all for the compost tea. And the remaining of the compost we put into the ground. I usually till that in along with leaves and all before we start the planting. I do the same thing inside of the hoop houses also. Hoop houses, we usually use compost tea with fish emulsion. Where when I clean fish, we save the fish cuttings and whatnot into a bucket of water. And at the end of the year, we'll drain that off and mix a half a gallon of fish emulsion and half a gallon of compost tea, along with worm castings into a 5-gallon bucket of water. And we aerate it for about 24 hours. Then we'll take it out and we'll spread it around the plants. We also, like I say, we use different sources so far as your coffee grinds and whatnot, which is good for keeping the soil, keeping the slugs down and everything. And also we use shredded paper when we work into the ground because it's all natural and it breaks down. We also.
Can you tell us, Warren, can you tell us in the movie you mentioned using worm castings out of Delaware and that you sell that. Can you tell us more specifically where that comes from?
Well, it comes from a farm in Delaware. The fellow used to be an accountant, and well, he's still an accountant. And someone to do something with them big rabbits that they had, so they started doing composting. And now he have a big business doing that. And we used to get compost from him, and we sell it. Kim at the White Lock Farm, she used the same thing every year, and he delivered it down to me. And that's where we get the worm castings from.
And what about the sulfur product that you mentioned?
Well, it's sulfur nitrate that I use in for to keep the salt content down in the soil that builds up from, we have soil brought in and put in raised beds. And along with your mushroom compost, a lot of that sometimes have a lot of salt in it. Being that the greenhouses do not open up for heavy rains to wash the soil out like you do in a field, it builds up. So we have once a year, we'll put nitrate, sulfate in there, and we'll rake it in, and we'll water it 2 or 3 times to flush it down good, so it can help to get rid of some of the salt that we have.
Nice. Okay.
But we use garlic. We use garlic, use onion. We use garlic, onions, and peppers, and we cook it down on a hot plate. And we mix it with water, and we'll spread on the plants. And that will keep a lot of things don't like that garlic smell, especially grasshoppers. And any kind of leaf-eating bugs, they sort of deter them from that, because they don't like the pungent smell and taste of garlic.
I thought you were actually going to talk about what you were making for lunch. I'm not even kidding. That sounded delicious. Talk to us a little bit about how you chose to pursue becoming certified naturally grown.
Well, we chose that because we didn't want to go organic route because that's just about money in the government. But certified naturally grown is all about farmers keeping each other honest in what we're doing in our practices and all. We are tested each year. Now we find out what we use each farmer. Farmer go from different farms and they test each other's, not soil, but they check to see what they're using, what they're putting into the ground, what they're growing and how they're doing it. And the same units of different fertilizers and whatnot that are used by organic, it's the same thing that we use, although some practice for organic is not the same as it is for certified. And with certified, like I say, you control it and not the government, and that's why we went with them, Mm-hmm. We want to let people know that we're not just throwing stuff in the ground and growing it. We want to let them know that, hey, we're trying to give you all the best that we can give you,
Awesome. Real quick, I want to move to the next slide, but if you guys want to take a screenshot of this one, the video linked below is a really wonderful YouTube-based video of the blues and from the farm. So if you want to have a look at that later, that's another great resource for you. We did have a question in chat about what the other ingredients for the spray you were making, and it was green pepper or peppers and onions and garlic. Is that correct?
Yes, hot peppers.
Yeah,
Hot peppers.
hot
Garlic
peppers.
and onion.
Awesome.
Okay, it's garlic, onions, and peppers to make the insect spray to spray on the plants. What you do, it doesn't matter whether, it doesn't have to be fresh garlic. We use a lot of ones that have dried out and we can't use. So what we do is we just, sometimes we grind it down. Sometimes we'll just put it in a big pot outside because it does not smell good. Most people think onions, peppers, and garlic smell great. Not if you're cooking it all together. It does not smell good. And if it doesn't smell good, you can imagine that we don't even want to be around it when it's cooking. So the insects definitely don't like it. And that was one of the things we came up with when we first started, because we did not want to spray our plants with insecticide. If you're doing everything for the soil and then you turn around and then you use commercial sprays, you're defeating the purpose. So we started, someone told me, or either we came up with, I don't know how we came up with that, but anyway, we started doing that. I think somebody told me to do that. And we started and added the hot peppers, and then we sprayed it on the plants, and it did pretty good. But you had to be careful because if it's too concentrated, it'll burn your plants. So what's the formula we break it down to? I think it's like, what, 1 part to 4 parts of the spray?
Two parts of spray, I mean, 2 parts of the concoction to 3 gallons of water.
Okay, 2 parts of concoction to 3 gallons of water. So if anybody wants to try it, I would err on the side of caution and, use a little bit and mix it up and just find your own level as to what works, because you don't want to burn up your plants, especially if they're young. When they get a little older, if it burns some of the leaves, it's okay because the leaves will come back. So you don't worry too much about that when the plants are more mature. It's when they're young that you worry about it. Okay,
So
any other?
You could carry on from this line of thinking. I know that one of the reasons you wanted to get involved in certified naturally grown and that you use organic practices and, again, homemade sprays instead of commercial sprays, is you have some thoughts around chemicals. And I think one of the things we'd like to mention is that soil health practices that management practices that are beneficial to soil health include things like minimizing disturbance. And disturbance, according to the NRCS, includes physical disturbance, so tillage and that kind of thing, but also chemical disturbance. So why don't you mention a little bit about your thoughts around that?
I don't know. I just don't like chemicals.
Well, years ago, I read a book by Rachel Carson called Silent Spring. And that's when I really realized that farmers at that time were using a lot of chemicals. And to the things, I would go and talk to them and say, what do you use in your soil? What do you use on your plants? And I was rather alarmed at what I heard. So I told my husband, when we get a place, I want some land. Doesn't have to be much, but we gotta have some land so we can grow and we can control what we put on our plants. I wasn't thinking about the soil health, but when we got here and we started planting, the soil was bad. And so we had to kind of clean it up and build it up. And so that took us on another whole journey. We went to school, we went to training sessions to learn how to do it and to do it properly. And so for those out there that are just starting, if you're not sure, I suggest you attend some of these trainings because they're helpful. Because you can make mistakes along the way. It's nothing wrong with making mistakes, but sometimes they can be costly. So you want to kind of test your soil. We didn't know any of these things when we first started. So you want to get your soil tested. And we get it tested almost every year. We also get our compost juice tested. And we request that they give us a breakdown so we'll know exactly how much to use and how much is in there. If it's too much of one thing or the other, they'll tell us, and they'll tell us how to neutralize it or to break it down so that it wouldn't be harmful to the plants. So these are things that we didn't know at first, and we had to learn. And so that's my suggestion to everybody, especially those that are new and just starting out, to do that.
Warren, believe it or not, we're almost at 12:30 already, but
oh my.
I know time flies when you're having such a good time. Could you clarify where you got those, where you took courses and who's doing your testing for you?
Well, we got our testing done there, and I think it's up in
is it Delaware?
Yeah, it's in Delaware. I can't think of the name of the company right offhand, but you can contact your land agent through through your nutrient management plan people, and they will give you a list of different places. Universal Maryland Extension Service will also give you a listing of different places you can get your compost, your soil and stuff tested every year.
Excellent.
I'm going to put.
I want to be sure to get this slide in before folks have to leave, because the Blues mentioned that they raise their own transplants, and this is their great granddaughter. I can't even believe they're old enough to have grandchildren, let alone great grandchildren.
Thanks a lot.
So I'm not cutting you off, but Amanda, if you'll hop to the next slide, what I want to do is just go over these quick announcements. And then the Blues have graciously offered to give us an extra 15 minutes for those that want to stick around. But for those who can't, let me just run through this slide and then we'll circle back into having some more conversation. So I did mention the video contest earlier in today's program. I think I have the wrong slide here. I'm not quite sure how that happened, but anyhow.
Okay.
We do have a video.
Let me do that. Let me
We'd
do
love
this.
for you to engage with us on social media, and you'll hear more about this kind of workshop and the video contest and so forth on those channels. That's a really good way for you to stay in touch with us. We also have a calendar of events on our website. And our Soil Health to Go is the second Wednesday of every month through June. When you sign up, you've signed up for all of them. So feel free to go ahead and attend others that are forthcoming. We are so appreciative of those of you
can
who
do that
are here and who but we're going to carry on with our conversation with Warren and Lavette for another few minutes.
Give me a number.
So Lavette, I think I cut you off before you were talking about where you get things tested and where you sort of got your education. But I know that you do soil test, and you talked to me about the frequency for that. So you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, we've been doing it a little bit more now. But what I'm doing right now is I'm putting some of the information and the sources of some of the things that we do and the people that we use. Bear with me, I'm not a fast typer, unfortunately, but some of the places that we do, okay, the first one is where we get our compost, and I'll be sending this out with a number. His name is Ben, and I'm sorry.
When you say you get your compost, did you mean your worm castings?
Our soil.
Oh,
for our raised beds.
Perfect. Okay.
In the hoop house. Okay. The next one is the next place. That's the Agri Lab. And we also get, what's the other thing? For our transplants is, it's called Summer Creek.
Okay.
And I'm putting that on now. And if anybody has any questions, please ask me while I'm doing my finger
Well,
typing.
there is a question, and we can add this too. Somebody wants to know how they can get in touch with you if they want to buy from you.
I'll put my number on. They can actually, it's 410-365-4181. Please write it down in case I forget to put it on here. I'll try to remember because I'm typing the other numbers for them.
I think
I'll try to remember. And they can just call me. And what I usually do is I take orders over the phone.
Yeah.
Speaking about the training and classes, we used to go to the Small Farmers Conference every year down to UMES. And they have a lot of different classes. They even let you know what's there even before you register. But you can go through your University of Maryland Extension Service, and a lot of those things, well, we learned a lot from John Trumpville, which used to be the manager of the, what is that? The
I don't know.
Master Gardener classes.
Yeah.
And a lot of things that you can learn so far as different courses to take or to attend. It's just tap in with your University of Maryland Extension Service agent, and they will keep you abreast of different things that's coming up during different times of the year. I know things have changed now, being everybody is Zoom, and it's nothing meeting in front, in person, but that's going to change after a while too, So just stay in touch with your University of Maryland Extension Service agent, and they will give you all the guidelines and places that you need to go or people you can contact to get a lot of different things answered,
So those of you, just double check in the chat box. Lavette has typed in phone numbers for the compost source that she has that they use for AgriLab, for Rick Summer Creek Farm. Now, what do you get from them?
That's the soil that we do for our transplants, for our seeds to grow. And yeah, it's a growing medium, and you'd have to let him know which is which because he has two different kinds. One is outside, one is for outside flower pots and stuff like that, and one is for the transplant seedlings.
Okay.
Okay. So
does anybody have other questions that they'd like to put out into the room? We've got another 5 minutes or so, and we can just have a conversation here if folks want to ask specific questions.
Well, okay. While they're coming up with this, I'm going to go over what we use again. We had the sulfur, which is used to cut salt buildup in the soil. Sulfur nitrate. Sulfur nitrate. Okay. Garden tone, the Esponza, I think it's a certain kind, ESPONASA. That is to fertilize all the plants. It's our overall one. We have the feather mill, which is sprinkled into the ground when we're cultivating to add nitrogen to help the plants grow. The coffee grounds, which are used to control slugs, which I'm sure people would love to know that. Fish emulsion, which is a side dressing that is sprayed on the plants once it starts growing. The DE, because I can't pronounce the whole thing. I can never get it right. Diatomaceous earth is used for insect controls, usually used when you're cultivating the soil before you put your plants in. And potash, which is used around fruit trees and in the soil to maintain the soil health to release potassium into the plants. I wrote it all down. So hopefully that's helpful. Any questions?
I was trying to type as you were talking and I missed something. I've got the garden tone, sulfur nitrate, fish emulsion, DE, potash. What did I miss?
Feather meal,
Okay.
feather meal, and
And you also
and
mentioned worm castings.
yeah, worm castings. I don't have that here, but worm castings. That's really interesting. And you'll know your soil, your soil is healthy if you have a lot of earthworms. So dig around in your soil, and especially on the outside, but you can also have it in the hoop houses. Mhm. Okay. So,
Lisa, we can't hear you, unfortunately. You want to pop something into chat?
Question from the chat.
Ah, okay. Let me see if I can find that. Oh, there it is. Yep. How much of the wood ash do you use?
we just sprinkle it. It's not a particular amount. Around the fruit trees, we usually do it in the fall of the year, and then put mulch around it to help with the soil. We have like 5 fig trees, and so what we do with that, and we found that uh, the wood ash actually works a little bit better than the store bought. You can do the store bought, but I don't know, it's something, just a little different. And so a friend of ours provided us with that because he has a lot of trees in his back, in the back part where he lives. And so every year he brings us a couple of big bags and we just use it, and then we save it, and then we put it into the ground. And we found, at first we weren't putting it in the ground, but then we found out that if we sprinkle it, our plants did a little bit better. We didn't use a lot. We just kind of sprinkle it around, mixed it with some of the fertilizer that we would put down, and just put it down when we plant it, and it did well. You don't have to use a huge amount, just enough to kind of, couple of teaspoons. When you mix up the rest of it to put down, you also mix that up into it, and then you just put it in the ground.
So when we were talking earlier, we got onto the subject of how challenging it is when you're a small, diversified vegetable operation to deal with cover crops, because you're trying to maximize the things that you can sell. And fairly often it's challenging to get the cover crops in. So if we want to talk about that at all, we can. If others have questions, or if you guys want to kind of comment on that, that might be of interest.
Well, this 2020 was not a good year. We usually sell a lot of transplants, and we usually have an intern from Future Harvest, and everybody just kind of cut everything off, and we kind of felt it was better to stop them from coming, simply because for safety's sake. But it cost us, and we didn't get our transplants in the ground. The ground was very, very wet. It was, we took a great loss in the transplants because our customer base, because everything was crazy, didn't buy the transplants. So we lost quite a few, over half of what we had in our hoop house. We didn't have the people to come and help us to plant them. The soil was wet. It was just a mess. And so it has us rethinking how we're going to do things and all. And our crop was late. And like right now, we're just getting seeds. Normally we would have our transplants in the house and maybe an inch or so high. We haven't even planted them at this point. So that's where we are.
Anybody else struggle with that? I also want to bring up that we want to get a clarification on the hot pepper mix. And Angela has said 2 parts of concoction to 3 gallons of water, mix it up until you find what works. Is that the right formula? Is that what we're shooting for, or is there more information there?
It's all about what works for you. you kind of have to, well, we send ours off to the lab and we just kind of ask. And sometimes with if you're small, you just basically start off, I would say, with a smaller amount rather than, I would say, one part starting off, because you really don't know how strong your form, you know, if you use a lot of peppers and the pepper, garlic, and one says 2 parts to 3 gallons of water. It depends on how strong that is. Because you can use a lot of garlic, you can use a lot of peppers. Peppers are the things that burn, and we're talking hot peppers. So if you want to start off with that, I would suggest that you use less peppers, okay? Because they're the things that burn your plants faster. Garlic doesn't too much, onions not too much, but the peppers, yeah.
So I think what folks are struggling with is, you know, if you're going to use garlic, onions, and peppers, how many, or do you cook them? Do you buzz them in a blender? How do you, I think you mentioned a cooking number.
How put them in,
how many?
Okay. What size is that when we cook the pot in? Is that a 5 gallon?
No, it's about a 2-gallon pot of water,
Okay.
and I load it up with peppers and garlic and onions.
Okay, we use a 2-gallon pot of water.
Yeah, on a hot plate.
On a hot plate outside.
And I load it up with garlic, peppers, and onions. And
we just fill it up with, you know, the dried onions, peppers, and stuff like that. And we boil it down. And then you can tell if it's really strong because you'll get a whiff of it.
Drain it off, put it in a 3-gallon.
Okay.
Mix with 3 gallons of water.
You want to tell him? He said strain it off and mix it and put it in a, I prefer a glass jar.
Bucket with 3 gallons of water.
Yeah.
And spray it.
Okay, he says 5-gallon bucket.
Yeah.
And mix it with a 5-gallon bucket of water. Yeah. And that it would
3 gallons of water.
And 3 gallons of water. Okay. Now this is the one that does it all the time. Okay. So 5-gallon bucket, 3 gallons of water, and then the juice from the 2-gallon pan that we pour off, and that should do it. Okay. And not too many hot peppers. I mean, some, but not, don't make that the main ingredient.
We're gonna make this your special formula. You can start selling that too. We are at 12:46, which means we've exceeded even our extra 15 minutes. So I'm gonna honor the commitment from the Blues and everybody else, and bid you all good afternoon. Thank you again so much for being here. Follow up with us or with the Blues if you have questions. Please check in with us on social media. We'd really love to have you as part of our team. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your Wednesday.
Okay, thank you. Bye, all.
Thank you.
Check with Kim too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Take care.
Bye.